Jive, nigga.
What's up? I'm your man, Chance. We back with another one. This is the Thinking Out Loud podcast, man. Thank y'all for tuning in. Please hit that like button, that share button, that subscribe button, comment, man, if you liking the podcast. Again, thank you for tuning in. This is episode 14. We're going to hop straight into it, man. Song of the day, Candy Lady by Big Yavo. I've been spinning that for a minute. That's my song for right now. Y'all spin that whenever y'all get a chance. But look, we got a lot to talk about today. We talking about all that Voting Right Act stuff that the Supreme Court did this past April. We're going to hop right into it because this is a heavy topic. And I really want y'all to understand what's going on. Because I know my people, we ain't going to go vote. We'll go stand in line for some Jordans, though. Them same Jordans they going to release 2 years later, the same colorway. We are missing rent behind that. We will stand in line for that, but won't stand in line for our rights as humans. Jordan made his money. What are you doing? But hey, keep doing what you're doing, man. If we lose our voting rights, man, just, shout out you. But in all seriousness, in April 2026, that's this year, the Supreme Court handed down a decision that most people haven't heard about, didn't hear about. You saw no celebrations, no crowds gathering in the streets, no breaking news countdowns on the TV screen. But within days, politicians in Tennessee, shout out good old Tennessee, the volunteer state, they already started redrawing congressional maps. They said, yeah, we got to start back redrawing the maps because Supreme Court just gave us the green light. Lawsuits were being filed. Civil rights groups were at protests, sounding alarms. And a debate that has existed since the civil rights movement suddenly came back to life. You would have thought that, man, we wouldn't deal with anything civil rights related in 2026. Why are we still discussing civil rights in 2026? There are civil rights, but it's resurfaced. And the debate wasn't just about maps. People say, oh, they just redrew the maps. They redrew the lines. No, sir. It's about who gets political power in America, essentially. That's what it boils down to. This is the question that this series of events boils down to. If ignoring race causes minority communities to lose political power, should the government be allowed to consider race when drawing voting districts? I'm going to say that again. If ignoring race causes minority communities to lose political power, should the government be allowed to consider race when drawing voting districts? Or does considering race, even for a good reason, is that racist? Is that unconstitutional? That's the question at the heart of one of the biggest voting rights debates in America today. And after the Supreme Court made that ruling in 2026, this has become very real for our society. That's a question that needs answering, that's still up in the air. But it's imperative to start with the Voting Right Act of 1965 itself, because this is where it all stems from. 1965. This isn't a long time ago, people. 1965, but my grandmother was born before 1960. Ruby Bridges has a TikTok, and she desegregated schools, man. This isn't ancient history. This is a generation or two away from us, from me. So they don't think that, oh, this is old, it can't affect us. It came back 2026, and it's on us right now. So start paying attention, because this stuff is actually real. The Voting Rights Act in 1965 was passed for a pretty simple reason. They was not letting black folks vote. There you go. They was not letting Negroes vote. And mind you, black Americans had the right to vote long before 1965. Long before 1965, we could vote. The problem was that many states spent decades finding ways around that right. Oh, well, you can vote, but take this literacy test. And this how black people vote anyway. I'm sure that's probably how they was doing it in the back. We look for the blackest name, Lakeisha Johnson. Let me put her down. But if you taking literacy test, black people weren't allowed to read back then. Struggling to read, they couldn't read. You take a literacy test, you can't vote. Poll taxes, you got to pay to vote. Registration barriers, intimidation, violence. They were doing anything to keep minorities out of the voting polls. And one could make the argument that they're doing the same thing now. But that's neither here nor there. We're going to do both sides, guys. I'm not going to get on here and just be the black Afro guy, radical with the dashiki, saying, oh no, this is wrong. I'm going to lay out both sides for you and let you come up with your own opinion. Because that's what matters. As long as you see both sides and form your own opinion, so you don't automatically say, man, they're racist, or this is a good thing. Form your own opinion. But yeah, they weren't letting black people vote, man. Violence, literacy tests, poll, all that good jazz. So good old Congress stepped in on our behalf. They said enough is enough. And they passed the Voting Rights Act. And straightforward, the Voting Rights Act basically said that your race should not determine whether your vote counts. All votes should matter. And over time, one part of the Voting Rights Act became very, very important, and that's Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. Section 2 is like a shield. It's like a protective barrier. Its job was to stop states from drawing voting maps that weaken the political power of minority communities. Section 2 said that you cannot draw these maps where the minority community won't have a voice, where they won't have a say. So here's something that a lot of people don't realize when it comes to voting. Voting isn't just about whether you can cast a ballot or not. That's what it seems like on the surface. However, it's about whether your community has enough political influence, political leverage for that ballot to actually matter as a whole. And that's where district maps come in, and redrawing maps and gerrymandering and all that good jazz. There's a strange power, there's a strategy to the way these maps are created, the way they're drawn. And it's important to know that. So let's give an example. Let's say a state has 100 voters, right? 40 vote for party A, 60 vote for party B, all right? 60 plus 40 equals 100 for my people that struggle, my public school guys, at 60 plus 40 equals 100, carry the one. I know it gets difficult. We out of school, but it equals 100. If the district lines are drawn one way, party A might win a couple seats. Draw them another way, and party A might win none, even though the exact same amount of people cast the exact same votes. That's the idea called gerrymandering. Gerrymandering. Politicians have been doing it for generations. They gerrymander. So gerrymandering is a practice that is never going to go away. Gerrymandering is something that we read about in textbooks, guys. Something that we read about, and it's resurfaced here in 2026. Another political tactic that politicians use is one called cracking. You have cracking and you have packing. So now, as it pertains to cracking, one of the most common techniques is cracking. And imagine a city where a lot of people vote the same way. Take Memphis, for example. Mainly Democratic. We all vote the same way. Most people are voting Democrat. Instead of keeping that city together, lawmakers split it into multiple districts. Now those voters are scattered across larger districts and may no longer have enough numbers to elect candidates they prefer. You're not losing your right to vote. That's not the thing. My vote right was snatched. It wasn't snatched, but the outcome changes. Your vote may not have as much power as it once did now because of this redistricting and the redrawing of the lines. That's why district lines matter so much. And the Supreme Court, they just changed the rules of the game. They just turned it upside down. In the case, this is this year, 2026, Louisiana versus Calais, Calais, Callais. Forgive my mispronunciation if I mispronounced it. But at the center of this case was a basic question. How much should race be considered when drawing voting districts? I mean, this is America. We focus on race with every single thing else. Why is it now unconstitutional to consider race when it pertains to voting? But hey, that's neither here nor there. That doesn't matter. Voting doesn't matter. People don't vote anyway. So just let them do what they want, man. Whole time, I'm sick of America. Why can't we just do the little Love Island poll, go on your phone, vote for the best candidate? Because I'm sick of the parties. Democrat, Republican, two wings on the same bird. Just give me the best candidate. I just want to vote for the one. I don't want to have to lean far right, lean far left. I just want the perfect person for the job. Is that too much to ask for? I feel like just let me vote. Just let me vote. That's all. Anyway, back to the Supreme Court. The court stated that states cannot make race the dominant factor when drawing maps. Even, this is the kicker, even if the goal is to help minority voters gain representation. So even if black people need the representation, you can't solely redraw these lines based on race. Supreme Court said, no, sir. No, sir, Bob, you cannot do that. Supporters of this ruling saw this as a victory for the quote-unquote colorblind Constitution. And their argument, said I was going to give you both sides, their argument for those who are in support of it, they say that the government shouldn't sort people by race, even if it's for good intentions. That's racist. Can't sort them out by race. It's not good. But critics saw something very different. They said that the ruling weakened one of the strongest protections minority voters had under the VRA. That's the Voting Rights Act. And that's because of a tension that has existed for years. The court has generally been much tougher on racial gerrymandering than partisan gerrymandering. Racial gerrymandering is the redistricting of lines based on race. Partisan gerrymandering is the redistricting of lines based on political party, Republican, Democrat, so on and so forth. So, in a nutshell, the idea is this. Drawing maps based on race is often legally risky. It's not something that we want to do. It's not something that we want to do. However, drawing maps to help Republicans or Democrats is often more legally acceptable. We can do that. That's good. If they're Republican, Democrat, redraw those lines. That's good. That's good. However, maybe you picked up on the issue. Maybe you haven't. The issue is that party and race in this country overlap a lot. They correlate a lot. How many black Republicans do you personally know? How many white Republicans do you personally know? How many black Democrats do you personally know? How many white Republicans do you personally know? This is where the overlap comes in. So we're not, quote unquote, redistricting the lines based on race. No. Those black people who vote Democrat, we don't care nothing about their race. That's what they're saying. We just care about their party. Democrat. They vote for Democrat. So we're going to break the Democrat up, not the black. No, even though the same thing. The Democrat part, you know, split that up. That's the loophole there that's going on. Imagine this. Let me think. Thinking out loud. In action. Imagine lawmakers split up a heavily black community. Memphis, let's just talk about Memphis, bro. Civil rights groups might say, you weakened the black voting power. And then the lawmakers might respond and say, no, we weren't targeting race. We weren't targeting the black people. We were targeting the Democrats that just so happen to be black. Because we're not racially gerrymandering. That's horrible. We're doing it by party, partisan gerrymandering. That's the argument. We're not breaking you up by color. It's by party. And just so happens the party is mainly made of black people, you know? So tough luck. Tough luck. And, that distinction has become one of the biggest fights in American election law, unfortunately, man. Critics say it's a loophole. Supporters argue it's a meaningful constitutional difference. And then you get good old Tennessee to enter the mix. Soon as the Supreme Court passed that, Tennessee was on it. Of course, it was a southern state that got in on that action. They said, oh yeah, we need that. We need that. It appeared as if they were lying in wait for them to drop that decision, and they had a plan and they executed it. That's what it appears as. However, it could have been a spur of the moment decision. You never know. But hey, who knows? But what happened next with Tennessee? Tennessee is always in good news, right? Supreme Court issued the decision at the end of April. Within days, Tennessee lawmakers were already moving. They tell minorities and black people, oh, justice, it takes time. It takes time to change laws. It takes time to do these things adequately. You got to go through the process, and you have to wait and long suffering. These people got it done in less than a week. They had their mission. They said, we getting it done in a week. Let me give y'all the timetable so y'all don't think I'm lying. Because when the right people want the right thing done, it don't take no time. It's passed then and there. Mind you, black people couldn't vote for real until well after they were already given the right. It took them however many years to put a system in place, to put an act in place to make sure that black Americans were getting their actual rights. These folks moved in 6 days. Let me get out the timeline. In May 2026, Tennessee's Republican-controlled legislature held a rapid vote to redraw the state's congressional map. Based on the reporting and legislative timeline, Tennessee moved extremely quickly. The timeline appears to be April 29th, 2026. The Supreme Court issued its decision in Louisiana versus C. May 1st, 2026, Governor Bill Lee called a special legislative session to review Tennessee's congressional map. May 5th, 2026, the special session began. May 7th, 2026, the legislature passed a new congressional map, and the governor signed it into law the same day. So, from the Supreme Court decision on April 29th to the map becoming law on May 7th was about 8 days total. From the governor's call for a special session to enactment was only 6 days, less than a week, no more than 8 days. Wow. And guess who they focused on? Guess what city they focused on? You guessed it, Memphis. Now, Memphis is its own state. I would tell anybody that Memphis is its own state. Because if you're driving into Memphis, you're going to see, barbecue, wings, black people, you know. It's good. It's great. And we're a democratic city. Have been for the longest because, like they say, we're not targeting the black, we're targeting the Democrat. And just so happen the black people happen to be Democrat. So we target Democrat. They targeted Memphis. Because if you from Tennessee, you drive east. You better stay out while the sun is out. You feel me? The further east you go, Trump country. You best beware. Tennessee is still a very southern state, still a very Republican state. Memphis is just an outlier. That's it. If we're being real, Memphis is just an outlier. So, Memphis is a majority black city, traditionally been the center of Tennessee's only meaning one, reliably Democratic congressional district. Under this new map that Governor Bill Lee put into place, Memphis was divided into 3 different congressional districts. We were just one. Each of the 3 pieces were attached to larger rural areas that tend to vote Republicans. So these Democratic votes will probably be powerless and get swept under the rug or lost into the Republican Party's votes. And this is called cracking. We're going to break up this strong hub, section it out, and it'll get lost amongst the rest of the opposing votes. But supporters just call it's normal, man. It's normal redistricting. Normal. Because prior to this, Tennessee would usually send 8 Republicans and 1 Democrat to Congress. But the new map would give Republicans a path to winning all 9 seats, meaning that the Democratic Party in Tennessee has no representation at all in Congress. And that's where the lawsuits began. NAACP, ACLU, other black groups argue that the map unlawfully weakens black voting power. And supporters argue that the map reflects political realities in a heavily Republican state. I mean, Tennessee is heavily Republican. Why not just send all Republican officials to Congress? That's what the majority of the state supports. And now federal courts are being asked to decide which side is right. Is this a suppression of black votes, or is this just a majority wins type issue? That's for you to decide. But that's not even the most fascinating thing about all of this. The bigger debate, the bigger idea is that both sides believe that they're defending fairness. Minorities, especially black people, since 1776, man, there has been a distrust in the law. Gonna get your 40 acres and a mule. Didn't get that. Didn't get reparations for slavery. Didn't get that. Injustice, you just saw Rick Chow get away scot-free with murder. Found not guilty. Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, the list goes on. Got the right to vote, quote unquote, but actions weren't taken until decades later to ensure that we were actually getting the vote. We shift from slavery to Jim Crow, and now this in 2026. Why should we be content? Why should we be satisfied? Why should we be okay with the idea that this is going on? Why should we trust in the government when the government has displayed a sense of unconstitutional values as it pertains to black Americans and minorities? Why should we trust that this is in the best interest of the American people when we weren't even seen as American people? We weren't even deemed people. We were 2/3 of a person. And I say this often, man. America is still very racist, still very sexist. In 2026, it'll never go away. Never. So why should we trust lawmakers? Why should we trust authorities? Because history has shown time and time again they don't care about the minorities' vote. They don't care about minorities. Nor would they ever make a decision with the best interest at heart for minorities. That ain't America. That ain't America at all. But I mean, that's just me thinking out loud. I could be wrong. People, they just doing it based off parties, man. It has nothing to do with race. This country doesn't take race into consideration. You don't have to literally check or fill out your race on every single document, every single paper that you fill out. You take a test. Sir, what's that nationality? What's that origin? You said you're black? Sorry. Can't take this test. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Yeah, should have checked that white box. Yeah. Are you Hispanic? Bummer. It's unfortunate, man. It's unfortunate. But, you know, civil rights advocates say if we completely ignore race, minority communities can lose representation. That's their argument. They argue race still matters because communities are often geographically concentrated and voting patterns frequently overlap with race. Without protections, they fear minority voters can be divided into multiple districts and lose political influence, thusly causing them to lose their voice. Conservatives often approach the issue from the opposite direction. Hey, their concern is that government should never sort citizens by race. That's racist. Even if the goal is fairness, they argue that the Constitution protects individuals, not racial groups, and that politics, not race, should determine election outcomes. In other words, one side worries that ignoring race creates unfair outcomes. The other worries that considering race creates fair outcomes. And that's why this case is so difficult, so intriguing, so fascinating, because it's still in the process of being litigated. And then you ask, well, what can I do? You can vote. We do have the midterms coming up. Why do the midterms matter? Please, go vote in the midterms. Please. Just go register to vote and vote. Y'all probably ask, can the midterm election fix this? Not directly. I'm going to be honest with you. It's not like you just enter the slip and then, yay, everything's peaches and cream. No, it doesn't directly. Voting district maps doesn't automatically change because of an election. But midterms can change who controls Congress. And Congress has the power to rewrite voting laws. So if enough voters elect lawmakers who support stronger voting rights protections, Congress could attempt to strengthen the Voting Rights Act, create new redistricting rules, or establish additional federal protections. Whether those laws survive future court challenges is another question for another day. But that's essentially where this political battle moves next. The vote is the hope of change. And without the vote, you don't have hope. You don't have a fighting chance. Remember, your ancestors fought, bled, died, cried to vote. And y'all sitting on TikTok, listening to music, chilling, not going to go vote. And before you know it, the rug will be swept from under your feet. And you may be hopeless. And all of that crying, dying, fighting was done in vain. If y'all continue to let if y'all continue to let things retract. Oh no. That's that in a nutshell. I mean, it's the end of the day, it's not about Memphis, it's not about Tennessee or even the Supreme Court. Ask yourself and then make the decision. Should protecting minority representation require considering race? Or should the government avoid race entirely, even if that means minority communities end up with less political influence? And however you answer that question probably determines how you view everything else in this debate and everything else when it comes to politics. This is far from over. Redistricting, voting rights, representation, political power, voices. Does my voice matter? Does my vote matter? This is forever going to be a topic of conversation. The best thing that you can do is educate yourself. Make a decision based off that and then go from there. But of course, there's probably going to be more info that comes out on this in a few months. Maybe the way Tennessee moving, maybe next week. You feel me? That's crazy. But look, y'all know this was a good, juicy, meaty episode. No diddy. And we got more stuff coming for y'all. This is just the second episode back off my hiatus. Please bear with me. But man, make sure y'all push this. This is an episode that y'all should share. Because people our age, people my age, don't really know what's going on politically, don't really know what's going on. And I'm going to try to give more type podcast episodes like this. Break it down. Hopefully y'all understood. Give me some feedback on this, man. Might try to take the podcast in a different direction. Slightly different direction. Same direction, but different, I don't know, altitude. I wasn't good at that. Longitude, latitude. Anyway, as always, I appreciate y'all tuning in. This is the Thinking Out Loud podcast, man. Y'all have a great week, great day, great hour, great minute, great life. Peace and blessings, man, from Chance. Y'all have a great day. Peace.
Go. Y'all even nigga.